Welcome to the JMark Business Innovation Technology Experience.
So today we're going to talk about whether it is better for business to be in the office or to be remote or something in between. This topic started because I got an article sent to me that was written by a business owner, and the title of the article was something like CEOs want everybody back in the office or something like that. And it basically argued that in the office is where true connectedness happens, where productivity happens, where a lot of other things happen. And it made me mad. So moving forward, though, I think we're going to have a good discussion about this, and we have plenty of data and thoughts to share and how technology kind of bridges that gap. So, Jeremy, you have not been a remote employee like myself, and you've kind of had a difference. Your opinion of remote work has changed over the course of the last, how long has it been now? 6 weeks, something like that. And I wanted to...
Again?
It's like every time I go to ask him a question. Delete video and return the page.
Yep.
Okay, it must be this producer thing. So let me do it a different way. Oh my gosh. Live on Facebook. Next time we'll be like, Jeremy, no.
For God's sakes, man, talk.
Talk fast. Christina, we need to delete some video storage on Zoom for this afternoon.
Okay.
No, I'm not going to do that.
Just so you know, the longer this takes, I'm searching for background images for Zoom, so this may get weird pretty quick if you don't get it going.
Okay, let's try this again. Doing it a different way this time.
Third time's a charm.
You're muted, Dax.
I just said now for the first time I can actually see on my Zoom window that it says we're live.
Yeah, meeting.
Okay, we are live for the third time. So thank you for anybody out there that's joining us. Hopefully you haven't said, forget it, says Morgan. Okay, so we have a really good discussion today. Again, so what happened is I got an email sent to me written by the CEO of a company who was arguing that connectedness and productivity happen while in the office and that remote work is bad for business. The title of the article is something like CEOs want employees back in the office. It didn't have a lot of data. Well, it didn't have any data in it, and it kind of ultimately made me mad. But we will move beyond that, and we will go to Jeremy, because Jeremy has, I think, a good perspective of this, because he started out for years, a lot of years actually, driving to the office. And then now kind of your opinion of remote work and productivity and in that sense has changed a little bit. So why don't we start the conversation with you, and we will see where it goes.
All right. Well, when Todd asked me to join this discussion, I found it intriguing because this Sunday will be my 26th anniversary at JMark. So I've had a lot of history with the daily grind. You get up, you shower, you get dressed, you drive to work, you do your work, you come home, you're at home. Sometimes you do more work at home, but there's a big difference between office work and working at home. And a lot of my peers over the years have gone to work from home days where they'll have Wednesday or Thursday or Tuesday or whatever day earmarked to work from home. And I've tried it before because, the talk is that you can get a lot more done those days. It's like head down, focus time. And I have never had good luck with that. So up until March, whenever this whole work from home thing started, my perspective was working from home is not for me. It may be for some people. I know Todd and Dax both work outside of the office, and it works for them, but I just figured it wasn't for me. And then I think March 13th was my last day in the office, Friday the 13th. And then after that, I've been working from home, and my perspective has changed a lot. I've gone from being what I would say less productive at home to being more productive. And there's a few reasons for that. One, I think, is that I become complacent, or complacent may not be the right word. I was reliant on being in the office to go talk to people. I was that guy who probably made everybody mad, because when I needed something or I wanted to talk to somebody, I got up and walked over to them. I didn't call them on the phone. I didn't send an IM. I didn't send an email. I got over and got in their face and got what I needed. And you can't do that anymore. And I've had to rely on the technology to do it, which is ironic since it's my job. So I don't know. For me, it's kind of come full circle to the point where I am worried about slipping back into old habits when we do go back to the office more full time. And I do plan to have dedicated work from home days to do project work, because I've learned how to utilize the technology properly.
Nice.
Yeah, I think it does take getting used to. I mean, it's almost like an acquired taste of sorts. But in this article, one of the things that let me pull it up here. One of the things that was mentioned in the article is that he says remote work is, quote, incredibly inefficient, and most business leaders I speak with are starting to hate it. And that's not what we're hearing at all. And maybe, the difference is the technology, the systems that we use, the processes that we have. But I remember being in the office, because I'm in Texas and I travel, well, before this, I travel to Springfield every month and usually spend 3 days to a week there. And I remember one week, it was on a Friday, right before I was about to go home, and I was sitting in an office. I closed the door because I was having so much trouble getting things done because I kept getting interrupted. And I sent a message over to Tom, almost in jest, Tom, our CEO, and just said, "Holy crap, it is so much more productive working from home." And his response was, "Yeah, I know."
Yeah,
and
there's a balance. So,
right.
there's productivity, and then there's the cultural aspect. And in reading that article,
True.
I can't completely disagree on some of the cultural parts of it, because there is something to be said for being in person. And Todd coming to the office once a month, you know, those are times you look forward to actually seeing a person, bonding with them, having lunch with them. There's something to be said for that. So it's really two different things. There's the productivity from a sheer work perspective, and then there's the bonding and cultural aspect of it. I think they both have their place.
I
You know,
agree. Oh, go ahead, Dax.
I was going to say that I agree with that to a large extent. I also think, though, however, that a little bit of that, and my first impression of this article that Todd's talking about was that the guy who was writing it was old school and stuck in his ways. And I do think that the cultural aspect of it is a little bit of something that that's what we're used to. And we're used to that one-on-one bonding. And the guy talked about you can't brainstorm. It's much better brainstorming in the same room. And I would there's a part of me that really wants to agree with that. But then there's another part in my head that says, well, is that just because that's what you're used to and that's what you're comfortable with? And I have this feeling that there are other people that are like, well, yeah, but you know what? Let's figure out how to make the bonding and the cultural things happen online. And they're going to figure it out and move ahead, where any of us who get stuck in, well, it's much better this way just because that's what we're used to, are going to fall behind a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree that, and I haven't always been full remote work cheerleader, but over the years, I've had to learn different tactics in order to increase my connectedness, in order to increase that idea of culture. And part of it is, the way the marketing team works. For a while, it's like I wanted to bring everybody together, to have a couple-day planning meeting and wanted to make that happen. And then I found that while I still want that on occasion, I actually get better connectedness by looking everybody at once in the face. And I can see the smiles, I can see the tiredness, or I can see the frustration, and that interaction has allowed us to, I think, bond more as a team. Whereas if we're together in a conference room at an all-day planning session and planning something, Dax isn't going to randomly draw a meme on the whiteboard or send me an emoji just for the heck of it. I may say something and he likes me, and that's it sounds so weird, but that is such a huge part of the connectedness that we have as a team, is because we can have these conversations and kind of make fun of ourselves and laugh and do things like that. And while you can still do that in face-to-face, it is a different way. It's not worse, it's just a different way. And there are still times that we come together to plan out our annual marketing planning or something like that. And it's just a different format for the meeting, but the ongoing connectedness that we can make, and the productivity that we can have through the technology essentially has completely changed my mindset on what builds culture, what builds connectedness. Because for a long time I was worried being in Texas and being I'm not going to get to know people, I'm not going to build any relationships, it's going to be easy for we don't need Todd, he's way over in Texas. And even coming to the office once a month, I'm in so many meetings, I'm not interacting with very many people. I'm interacting with the same people over and over again. And so I found that through all that we're doing with Workplace from Facebook, through all our remote meetings and video stand-ups and video one-on-ones. It's allowed me to get to know more people. It's allowed me to connect to more people. It's allowed for us remote people, and Dax, you may agree with this or disagree, but I believe it's increased the connectedness and the culture of the organization in the last 2 months that everybody else has gone remote.
I think it definitely has. I think that there have been times where, so in the last couple of months since everybody went remote, we started doing what we call a mini rally every Friday. And the entire company hops on Zoom. And so everybody is on video. And I know Jeremy and Christina, you guys can probably speak to a little bit better. A lot of people who work in the Springfield office are excited because they're like, oh, I can see everybody's face. I'm so, got used to seeing everybody daily. And it's really great to see everybody's face. And my perspective has been a little bit of, I'm seeing people that I never get a chance to see because, like Todd, when I go to the office, which is much less, I mean, maybe 3 or 4 times a year, I'm in meetings too. And so finally I'm seeing people and I'm getting to know people's personalities through the Zoom backgrounds that they choose and the little conversations that happen, the jokes where, I've seen somebody's Zoom background and send them a chat message and talk to somebody who I might have never talked to in person, just being in the office only occasionally. So it really has brought me closer to the rest of the company in a different way.
I wonder what tools this CEO that wrote the article is using in his company, because I feel like he's viewing the working remote as the problem when really he probably needs to look at what tools they're using. Are they basically relying on a bunch of emails for communication?
Yeah, and I'm sitting here thinking about how to say this because I don't want it to sound just too mean, I guess, but a lot of it's just people. Some people just don't like change. Some people aren't going to embrace it. And we have to remember too, internally, we've got a great culture at JMark to build from. A lot of companies have a culture of, the office space culture where the manager's walking behind people and timing bathroom breaks and that sort of a thing. That doesn't translate to, okay, go work from home now. You're going to have anxiety-ridden middle management whose place in the world is now questioned. You're going to have upper management who doesn't know what's going on and they're freaked out by it. And you're going to have rank and file people who are either going to step up and embrace the freedom and be a lot happier and more productive, or they're going to wilt. So I really think there's a lot needs to be said for the state of the culture going into the environment, not just here we are. You know what I mean?
Right. So I want to turn this around a little bit and make sure we're not all talking about just opinions, even though that's a lot about what it's about. But if we take what we've talked about and look at this from the perspective of what is better for business. So we've talked about the culture, we've talked about productivity. What are the points that we can talk about that are, quote, better for business? Costs?
Hmm?
Maybe, to me, the best benefit, and I can't speak from empirical fact, I can only speak from my experience, but from my experience, being forced to use the technology in place and taking away the crutch of the, hey, got a minute meetings has been really effective for me. And I would imagine for the people that I interact with, because they're not getting bugged by me as much. I'm now having to send them a meeting request. I'm having to say, can we schedule a time to get on a video meeting or a call, versus showing up at their desk and going, talk to me. So that's kind of a positive through a negative, if that makes sense. I think that's the biggest benefit I can point to so far.
Yeah, I think people have the ability to focus more. Just like you said, you can kind of block out everything else much easier in your own home than in the office.
And focus, I would argue for the most part, actually, more than the most part, focus drives getting things done. It drives execution. It drives profitability potentially. It drives getting projects done, initiatives done. You know, on the marketing team, I was thinking the other day about all that we accomplished in the last 6 weeks or so, and wondering what was different. And in my mind, I'm thinking about the maturity of the team and the growth of the team and all these different things. But the one thing that I really didn't take into account was the fact that there's so much focus now. You know, everybody is just getting things done. They are reaching out to people when they need to reach out to them. They're scheduling meetings when they need to schedule them. Otherwise, it's like head down, bam, 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 bam. And from a productivity side, a focus side, I should say, better for business is when someone can focus. Now, you can focus in the office. It just requires potentially more discipline or the right environment. There are a lot of rank and file that wouldn't have an office, so it would be harder to focus, I would say. Whereas some people do have an office, so they can shut the door, maybe put up a sign.
Yeah.
I think that,
Yeah,
so two things, Todd. I think, first of all, I have been in both situations, working remotely from home. I've been in situations that Jeremy talked about where it was like 2 days in the office, 3 days in the office, 2 days at home. And I am certainly one of those people who I cannot focus in an open office environment. You know, I need at the very least high cubicle walls to kind of block out so I can focus. But I also learned when I first, which is, you know, this is like 15 years ago, maybe even more, when I first started working from home, I had to learn to focus in that way too. So I think a lot of this comes down to personal habits and personal discipline. The other thing is that I think, you know, we started talking about using the tools and stuff. And I think that it is a matter of finding the right tools and figuring out how to make them work for you. Because I would say that we did have some growing pains back in March when we all switched over. It wasn't immediately what we're feeling now and the productivity that you're talking about, even on just the marketing team. There were some growing pains as we kind of figured out the new thing. But I think that people, I mean, that's innovation and growing and success and moving your business forward. That's always the case. And the businesses that actually do move forward are the ones that persist through those growing pains and are continually looking to see what they need to do better. Maybe this isn't the right tool. Maybe we need to switch to a different tool, or maybe we're just not using it in the right way and we need to hone our skills in that way.
Yeah, and you know, something you said just kind of piqued a thought with me. It goes beyond work. It goes beyond the office, and it goes beyond your job. Some people are more social than others. Some people need the interaction. Some people like the isolation. I've got people on my team who we're split down the middle. Half of us have embraced this. Half have already gone back to the office this week because they couldn't handle it anymore. And I think a lot of that comes down to, you know, if it depends what your definition of normal is. One person on my team, his way that he got away from work was he went home and he could play video games and watch movies, and he had a space. Well, the way his house laid out, that was the space he had to work in. So working in that space removed his ability to have his happy place, for lack of a better word. So it was a double disruption to his life, and he had to move things around. And when you live, in town in a house and you're locked in it all day, not being able to separate from, work mode to personal mode, I mean, it can lead to, we've seen the studies on the higher instances of depression and things like that, because normal goes away and your escape mechanism isn't there anymore. So, it's easy. I try not to be that guy who says, well, I just did this. Well, not everybody may have the ability to do what I was able to do. I was able to take a room and make it mine, and it's my office. And for me, the first week sucked. Like Dak said, the transition, the first week, I thought this was going to be horrible. But the things that I implemented to make myself more successful was I made sure to get up, you do all the things you normally do, you get dressed for work. I see the kids, I give them a hug, I tell them goodbye, Daddy's going to the office, and I'm in here. And if I go out, bonus. But when I get off work, I leave this room and I'm no longer at work. And that helped a lot with not only my mental health, but helping my kids to know the boundaries of Daddy's at work, don't go in there. Just like if I was at the office. And when Daddy comes home, it's a good time. Daddy's home, just like normal. So that worked for me. It may not work for everybody, but that was pretty pivotal for me to be successful, is setting those boundaries and rituals.
Now,
Yeah.
I think it's
Jeremy,
important.
you're a farmer, so when you talk about saying goodbye to your kids for the day, you're talking about your
the
human
human
kids or
one.
the goats?
No, I don't go tell the goats goodbye every morning. That would
Okay, just wanted to make
be
sure.
awesome, but a little weird even for me. Yes.
Okay.
Christina, do you want to say something?
Yeah, just on the side of remote work, it's kind of nice now that you have roughly an hour more with your family as well, since you don't have that commute 30 minutes in, 30 minutes out.
Yeah, but even that was a struggle, because that I had learned, and I didn't realize this until it went away. I had learned that had become part of my ritual, that I wound up for work on the drive in, listening to audiobooks, listening to the radio, getting into my headspace. On the way home, I got out of work mode. I got into family mode. I use it to unwind. I would decompress during that time. There have been times, one day this week, I don't remember, what is this, Thursday? One day this week, I went downstairs and I was just wound up tight. And my wife looked at me and said, whoa, what's going on with you? I'm like, sorry, I'm gonna go for a walk. I need some decompression time. And I had to go for
Totally
a walk
understand that.
to get normal. So yeah, I've got that extra time with my family, but I still had to learn, and I'm still learning how to not have that time to compress and decompress.
Yeah, I mean, there's give and take on both sides. When I was in Springfield and working from the office, it was, pulling myself away from work, because I would have a tendency to stay and get a few more things done, and then I'd get home late, but I've also dealt with that transition time, and the transition time, now is under a minute versus, 10, 15, 20 or more before. But getting back to what's better for business, I think that's the key, is that it's not a hard stance on everybody being remote. It's not a hard stance on everybody coming in. It's what's best for each company, not what's best for certain. Well, be careful to say that. There's this, IBM did a study, and it said that 54% of workers that are working remote now would like to stay working remote. And so these are people that were going into the office. That's a pretty large number. Yeah. So taking that into account, companies need to think about, what's better for my business? Are these people going to save office space that we don't have to pay for all that office space now? Is it going to, improve collaboration? Is there a hybrid approach that we need to implement, where maybe it's a certain number of days a week remote and some in the office? It potentially could change the entire environment of the office, because we don't know what we keep saying the better normal here, or in these podcasts, because the new normal drives us a little crazy. But when you think about coming back to the office, whenever that is, are there going to be people uncomfortable with having face-to-face conversations for a while? How is that uncomfortableness going to translate to collaboration? Will it be everybody scooting away from the table, and if somebody coughs, freaking out or sneezes, and so I think business leaders need to take this seriously, because it's not just stopping everything that's happened and getting back to how it was. We are looking at a potentially complete paradigm shift in how businesses operate, and companies need to look at this from the perspective of, how can I innovate? How can I transform? How can I create a future where my employees are happy, where we can improve the culture, keep the culture and improve the culture, where we can improve collaboration, and save costs? And ultimately, the answer to a lot of that is leadership and technology.
Yeah, you said there's I forget the word you used, it's a potential or a possibility that this is
better
going to
normal.
be a paradigm shift. I would argue that this is going to be different. There will be no going back to the way it was. And I think our culture, Western culture in general, is very guilty of the mindset that history is something that has happened in the past and it stops today, and here we are, and not looking at it as a big linear thing, and this is just one stop along the way. I think people need to get out of the mindset of thinking that, okay, here we are. No, we're on this journey, and this journey is going to last a long time. This may take years. This will probably take years to get to a point of defining what normal even is anymore. We're early in the first quarter of a long game, and a lot of people are treating it like, okay, it's almost over. Now, I'm afraid it's probably not. Regardless of what you believe about, the virus and all these other things, once you start a ball rolling down a hill, you can't just make it stop. Inertia has a way of keeping things going, and people have seen a new way, and some people are going to embrace it, some people are going to reject it, and that is what it is. We have to be mindful of the fact that every business is different in what they need to run. Do they need that interaction? Are you a retail organization versus an office versus a call center or something else? Technology can play a role in that, between cloud-driven applications, collaboration tools, all of that stuff. But ultimately, those are just a means to an end. And what is your company's goal? What is your mission? What is your value statement to your customers? And then how can we make this fit into it? And just focusing on getting back to normal is, I feel, just detrimental to the goal of supporting your mission, whatever that is.
Yeah, and the paradigm shift isn't potentially just in the operations of the company. There may be some companies where it does very much go back to the way it was, just depending on the structure of the companies. But we're also seeing a paradigm shift in behavior of the consumers or the customers that potentially serve a business. We've talked about in a previous podcast about ordering food from the grocery store and picking it up curbside. And I've ordered stuff from Lowe's and picked it up curbside, and I love it. It saves me so much time. But that is also, that behavior is going to transform into the operations of the company as well. And so it's like you said, Jeremy, it's not about wishing it all was over. It's about how can I prepare myself for what's next. And that could be a change in operations. It could be a change in technology. It could be a change in tools. It could be a change in a number of things.
There's three different ways you can look at it. You can be in denial and hope it goes away on the other end, or you can like, okay, how can I survive this? Like the other side of that is how can I capitalize on it? And I know we've done podcasts on that too. You know, how can I get ahead of the curve on the new normal? I know you don't like that word, but I've tried it better one yet.
I think, Jeremy, that's where the better normal came from, was a discussion about those people that are going to capitalize on it. And, you know, what Todd was saying about that there are some businesses that are going to go back to fairly close to the way they were operating before, which I think is fine. But I think the key is to stop and think about it holistically. And that needs to be a deliberate decision, because you've weighed all of the options and figured out that that is what's best for your company, versus the ones who are just like, well, this is the way it was. This is what we're used to. Let's head towards that. And the people that do capitalize on it are going to be doing the same thing. They're going to be the ones that are going to sit down and look and say, consumer behavior has changed. My customers act differently now. They want different things. How do I serve them better? How do I take technology? We talked with banks that are now looking at how they can use video technology to offer up some of their services that used to be done face-to-face. So it's, how do I take the technology that's available? How do I look at what people want now? And how do I serve that to them rather than trying to bring them back to what I'm used to? Because that's where I'm comfortable.
Yeah, I feel like
your employees.
These business leaders shouldn't just wish for things to go back to normal as soon as possible. I think they need to really take this time to think these things through.
Yeah, they actually said about evaluating what their customers want and how they want to do business from now on. Yeah, I think part of that too, you need to evaluate your employees where you can. Going back to the analogy earlier of the micromanaging and the culture of the company enabling this to work or prohibiting it from working. A lot of employees have seen the light now. It's almost a Pandora's box sort of a thing. You can't put that back. Once they've seen that there's another way to do this, people aren't going to want to go back to normal. And the companies that, once things do settle back to some semblance of better normal, people are going to be looking for the experience that exhilarated them. I liked working from home, but my company won't let me. Now I'm going to go job hunt where I wouldn't have before. Or the opposite. My company wants me to work remotely and I hate it. I'm going to go find a new job. So we're going to have a whole different type of employment crisis down the road.
But there's also an opportunity there, because JMark we have employees, I don't know in how many remote employees that are farther out than just Missouri or northern Oklahoma. But I mean, I'm in Utah, and now you can look at this as an opportunity. We know how to work people remote. We can hire people from anywhere in the country. Absolutely. And they can be a part of we can hire the very best people, not just the very best people within a 30-mile radius of the office. Absolutely.
Yeah, there's two sides of that coin for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So we operate out of 9 states and have clients in 43 states, and we've over the years have kind of been ahead of the curve, so to speak, in what's going on right now, because we've had to implement technology and we've had to implement tools to make sure that we can communicate, collaborate, expand on the culture, and provide services and support for our clients. And so I think it's definitely been an interesting conversation, and as we consider the original question of whether this is whether going back to the office or working remotely is better for business, it's obviously going to have to come down to the individuals within a business, the individual executives that are planning the business, but ultimately also it's about changing what you're used to and embracing potentially the new normal or the better normal, and whether that's new technology, new ways of doing things, new operations, different world.
So basically, the conclusion is to the question we opened up with. The conclusion is, it depends.
Very well. And we will leave you with that cliffhanger. Okay, thanks everybody.
See ya.
Yeah.
Bye, Internet.
Thank you for attending this podcast. We hope it has been informative and helped convey that at JMark, we are people first and technology second. To learn more and discover additional content relevant to your business, please visit us online at jmark.com or at LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You may also call us at 844-44-JMark. Thank you for your time, and we look forward to seeing you again.